Which witch is which? It's annoying when Sabrina talks to the audience. It's unnecessary. I'd actually rather she talk to herself, or Salem. She's throwing a potion and says that Hilda thinks she needs more practice with her magic, and she wants to go somewhere with Harvey. She then wonders if Harvey will never speak to her again just because it turns out she can't go spend time with him. That's dumb of her. It's not like she's sensitive, and therefore projects it onto other people, thinking they're sensitive. Hilda then says that Sabrina would have a whole bunch of guys lining up to date her if she looked like Hilda. Why doesn't she realize that mortals have completely different beauty standards? She always lived on this planet for centuries. Sabrina says a spell, and its words clearly indicate that she's gonna look like Hilda because of it, but somehow Hilda ends up looking like Sabrina. You'd think that one of these witches would be able to just instantly make Hilda look like herself again. But somehow, they have to wait for it to wear off. At least it's amusing enough to be worth it. Hilda says she's ruined just because she looks like Sabrina. It's times like this I'm grateful for the laugh track, because it makes it clear that the dark thing happening is just meant to be a joke. Hilda gets taken on a date with Harvey despite the fact that she told him to get lost somehow. And the only way people comment on Hilda still having Hilda's voice is that Harvey says she has a frog in her throat, even though that's obviously not how she'd sound if she had a sore throat. Someone gets ice cream thrown at him, and Harvey tries to dance with Hilda against her will, which is also confusing. You'd think if Hilda didn't like it at Pop Tates, she would just warp home right away. So she must find something to be worth it about staying here. She wants to get back at Harvey. Maybe that's why she was staying with him. She could have easily brainwashed him into not wanting to bring her to Pop Tates right away. She turns Harvey into a frog. Sabrina stands there in front of the door and lets them hop far away to force the plot to happen. And Sabrina goes to a pond that's full of frogs. Sabrina casts a spell on the various frogs one at a time to make them able to talk, so that she can figure out which one is Harvey. Well, it is smart of her to do that because she's making sure she doesn't turn the wrong frog into Harvey. It's intrusive and boring that we see some dogs joking to each other, asking for the real Harvey to stand up. So I'm glad Salem zaps them away, even if that was mean. Hilda meets up with Sabrina and turns back to normal, and says that this is a good chance for Sabrina to test her own abilities as a witch. She warps away, and Ophelia and Spencer walk over to her. Ophelia doesn't have a clear enough, interesting personality for me to understand why she's around. She doesn't even have a one-note personality. And Sabrina returns Harvey to normal because she assumes the frog with the dreamy eyes is him. She just lucked out in picking the right frog. All the frogs' eyes would look the same. Maybe it was process of elimination. It was the last one, so it had to be him. But she should have said that then. Then he keeps acting like a frog and ribbons for no reason, when she wouldn't imagine that to be the case. And he doesn't remember being a frog. The story ends with the frog still being able to talk. Sabrina recklessly not remembering to undo the spell on those frogs could freak people out. Now she's gonna have to go find all of the frogs and undo the spells on them before scientists find out. Oh, the episode ends there. This story was based on the forced idea that when Hilda somehow gets made to look like Sabrina by accident, when really Sabrina should have just looked like Hilda when she said that spell. Somehow none of these witches can instantly reverse the spell, and they have to wait for it to wear off. So Harvey mistaked Hilda for Sabrina and somehow forced her to go on a date with him, even though he was told to get lost. I have to just assume Hilda only stayed with him the whole time so that she could think of ways to bother him. And that's supported when she eventually turns him into a frog. Her voice sounding like hers and not Sabrina's is immediately assumed to be because she has a frog in her throat, when she wouldn't sound like Hilda because of that. So that's awfully convenient. Their stupidity could have easily been explained if we saw her point at them. But seriously, you'd think if the spell was so powerful that it had to wear off on its own, then everyone here would have just combined their powers to get rid of the spell right away. And why did Hilda think mortal guys thought that ugly girls were pretty, after all of her time living on Earth? She wouldn't think that Sabrina would be able to get any guys she wanted looking like Hilda, because Hilda would have been constantly insulted for appearance, as the comic shows. So the plot was forced, but it was amusing enough. It was funny to see what looked like Sabrina dressed like Hilda, talking like Hilda.
Are you kidding? It's 400 years old. Stop this fiendish contraption at once.
And Harvey just wouldn't get the hint. The basketball game. After her time is wasted by Sabrina telling her aunts that Harvey has a basketball game, when she wouldn't expect them to care, Ophelia has a character moment by getting surprisingly enthusiastic about the basketball game she's watching, despite being a girl in a 70s cartoon. Too bad this is the only time she's gonna get a memorable character moment. Reggie bounces a basketball off Spencer's head and somehow doesn't injure him, and he doesn't even cry in pain after the first time. Jughead has a hard time against a basketball player, and Ophelia feels sorry for the Riverdale team. Sabrina roots for Harvey, and people are running after him from both sides, so he throws it away and people cheer for him, and he makes another basket. Harvey's team keeps doing well. I like that he's being portrayed as competent at something. It's a little amusing that a ball goes in the basket just because Spencer's head comes up from underneath someone's hand, somehow. The stakes are pretty low, though. Why should I care about a basketball game being won or lost? It's a very mundane idea for a plot. Why does the other team have to be portrayed with all of its players being sinister, with sinister, gruff voices, and them saying yeah over and over? It's very forced. We were already rooting against them because they weren't Harvey's team. Hilda shows up, and someone makes the basketball float. And Hilda and Zelda think Sabrina's gonna be a great witch someday, so it's not them. Sabrina wonders if Aunt Hilda has something to do with this, and then she sees that the other team is somehow cheating, and sees a magnet being held by someone. So she ties the convenient giant magnet around someone with magic. It's entertaining to see her slide up the staircase. She casts a spell to return the basketball to being a normal basketball. It's pretty surprising that Sabrina waited until she found out that the other team was cheating before she decided to use magic to try to help out. She summons a home base in a basketball game, which freaks out Weatherby, and then Hilda makes it rain basketballs. Sabrina warps over to her aunts, who are sitting on top of the scoreboard. You'd think somebody would have seen them. I guess they're invisible when they're up there, and can only be seen by other witches. It's charming that her aunts think she's a great witch in this episode. Weatherby sees what's going on and says that field goals don't count in basketball. And Sabrina uses magic so that someone tries to use a baseball bat in basketball. This is amusing, but Sabrina would know that the stuff doesn't belong in basketball. It's charming that Ophelia said this is the kookiest game she's ever seen.
All of a sudden, this is the kookiest game of basketball I've ever seen.
I definitely prefer the comic having Sabrina's mistakes with basketball have to do with what the coach is saying. It's based off basketball lingo. Here, her mistakes had no excuse. Some people run after her and she assumes they know she's a witch. They say that Sabrina was their good luck charm after all. She'd know they were happy because they were smiling. So they lift her up and not one of the players, unrealistically. That's nice. This story was about Sabrina attending Harvey's basketball game. And surprisingly, unlike in the comic, she waits until after she finds out that the other team was somehow cheating by making an ultralight basketball impossibly and having a giant magnet, before using her magic to try to help Harvey win. But she somehow thinks summoning stuff related to baseball is a good idea, which makes no sense. It's a charming twist that Hilda and Zelda think Sabrina's being a great witch, because I didn't expect that. And also, unlike in the comic, Sabrina quickly realizes that she should stop using magic, and Harvey's team wins because she ends up leaving them alone. The story was boring until the magic started happening, because I had no reason to care about a mundane basketball game. It's shocking how long it went on for with Harvey's teammates getting baskets over and over. Go figure, Harvey's team won. But since I'm familiar with the comic, where Harvey's team has lost sometimes because of Sabrina's magic meddling, it is kind of a surprise that his team won. It was forced that everyone in the other team got portrayed as a bad person. What are the chances of that?